Okay. I call the August 22nd Newport Beach Public Facilities Corporation meeting to order. Madam Secretary, roll call.
The record will reflect that Director O'Neill has an excused absence.
Let's move on to public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. Hello, Mr. Mosier. Good to see you. I feel like it's been too long.
Corporation Chair Blom and members of the board, my name is Jim Mosier. Since all of you are members of our Newport Beach City Council, you know that the council has embarked on an effort to remove obsolete, unnecessary, redundant language from our codes and regulations. And if the 4 new members on this board were curious how they became directors of this corporation and what happened to the old directors, you might look on the city website at the web page for this corporation and find there a link to the bylaws, which you will see were last attempted to be refreshed in 2015. That effort was not complete because if you look at it, it will say the corporation has no members other than the directors specified in Section 5, but Section 5 has nothing to do with directors. They're actually specified in Section 3, and if you look at that, it has many confusing provisions in it as to how you, as council members, could appoint somebody other than yourself to be a director of the corporation, how long they serve, how they can be replaced, things of that sort, which necessitates then your annual meeting here to reorganize yourself. If you simply said that the directors of the corporation were the city council members, the chair was the mayor, and the vice chair, the mayor pro tem was the vice chair, that would eliminate all of that section and simplify it and make it more readable and understandable, and you would know as soon as you're elected you become a director. As to the substance of this, I wanted to mention that the city website also has a page about long-term liabilities. That page may need some refreshing because it mentions the refinanced library bonds, it mentions the Civic Center bonds. It does not mention the Firehouse 2 bonds, which are under your purview. And then neither it nor this staff report explains, and as directors I would think you would want to know what you are overseeing. There are, I believe, several separate series of bonds. I think the library ones are partially separate from the Civic Center ones, and the Firehouse ones are completely separate from those two. I cannot tell from the report or the website what the term of any of those bonds is, and I would think it'd be good for the public to know when each series of bonds will be paid off. I may have missed it. I did not see it in this report. As directors, I would think you would want to know that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Any other public comments? Wonderful. Okay. And thanks, Jim. I actually appreciate that. We will look into cleaning up those bylaws on that piece, and it has been a very eye-opening experience looking through the code, as I think both Councilmember Kleinman, the Mayor Pro Tem that's not here, and myself have discovered. We do have indeed some obsolete code in there that sometimes is even humorous. So, all right, wonderful. Let's move on to the election of officers.
I'll move the election of officers.
Wonderful. We have a second on that? Second by Councilmember Avery. Let's go to public comments on this item on the election of officers. Any public comments on this? And I'm not just looking at Jim, but I know everyone else in here is not here for this, so thank you for being part of it, though. All right, wonderful. We have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and vote.
All in favor, raise your hand.
All right.
Any opposed? The motion carries 6-0.
Wonderful. Moving on to the approval of minutes for the August 23, 2022 Public Facilities Corporation meeting. We have a motion on this one.
Yeah, I'll move the approval of the corporation minutes.
Thank you. And we have a second by Councilmember Kleinman. I'm sorry. You were right there. She was just excited. I know. Any director comments? No. Let's go ahead and vote, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0.
Excellent. We're moving on to a review of our annual financial statements. Do we have any, Jason? Are we doing a little deal here? Why don't you come up and say a couple of quick words? Do we need any words from the dais right now? We're looking up and down? No? We're good? Okay, perfect. Do any of the directors have comments or questions about this item here?
Nope.
Okay. Perfect.
Would you like me to make a motion
I
to
would love
receive
that.
and file the financial report?
I would really appreciate that, Joe.
There you go.
Perfect. Can we get a second on that motion? Councilmember Grant, perfect. See how that worked out? Beautifully. Let's go ahead and vote.
All in favor?
Thanks.
The motion carries unanimously 6-0.
Thank you. We're going to adjourn briefly to reset the system for the City Council study session. The August 22nd study session. Madam Clerk.
The record will reflect that Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill has an excused absence.
Thank you. We're going on to current business, and the first item is clarification item of the consent calendar. Councilmember Kleinman, do you need clarification of any items?
I do not.
Councilmember Stapleton?
I have none.
Councilmember Grant?
No.
Councilmember Weigand?
None.
Councilmember Avery?
None.
And I do not have any as well. Next item is discussion about the 2023 water and wastewater rate study. We're going to move over to Mark real quick.
Hey, good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. Mark Vukoyevich, Utilities Director, and also with me is Jason Alimam, our Finance Director. So it feels like I was just here, but actually was in 2019 talking about water rates, and here we are again talking about water, now wastewater rates. And so time flies, but it's a continual part of our business is looking at our rates, our revenues, how's the department functioning, and how are we paying for the things that we need to pay for? We have to buy water. We need to, invest in capital projects. And as all we've seen and felt in our personal lives, inflation is certainly something that we're seeing across the board. We've been to the Finance Committee twice now, and we spent some time with them talking about the Water and Wastewater Fund. Again, they're enterprise funds where they operate separately from the general fund. They're their own holistic funds. And it's about money coming in, money coming out. The rates that are collected from the businesses and the residents are the only things that fund the water system. Every once in a while, we're able to get a grant or two, and we always pursue those. But it's about those rates, and it's on that bill that we send to everybody to collect what's due on the water and wastewater system. We also, spent a lot of time talking about capital projects and that. At the end of the day, what we've come up with really is just the continual need, to keep funding and maintaining our water and wastewater enterprise. And that includes raising rates, simply put. And, fractionally is what we're talking about, but that's what's needed to keep up with our costs and to keep our infrastructure in good shape. Also, at the Finance Committee, we talked about the study, and we really liked, some real basic points there about kind of keeping a similar rate structure. In other words, something that's really simple, easy to understand. It has two components. I'll share with you those. And then, the correcting the structural deficit and making sure we adequately fund, our operations and capitals and reserves too. And then also one other transition we're going to be talking about, which is moving our rates more to cover the actual costs of what we're charging when it comes to fixed versus variable costs. So here for a typical water bill, you have two components. You have your fixed charge, which is based on the size of your meter, which is a function of capacity, how much water could be served to you and how much is actually usually served to you, and then how much you actually use in your home, in your landscaping, or in your business. And so for the average home that uses about 10 units a month, which is about 7,500 gallons a month, it's about $64 a month. And what that rate is made up of is 40% is fixed and 60% is variable. But our costs, our business costs, what we're calling it, are actually kind of vice versa. And so we're trying to move the needle to kind of capture more what's variable versus what is fixed, while still having a conservation component in there. Water use over the years, back in 2008, we were using 18,000 acre feet of water, and this last year we're down to about 13,000. So that's less. That's actually a 30% less water use over these last 15 years, which is pretty significant. And then, of course, we met our goals and targets even with this last drought and reducing our water use. It's just to show where the trend is going also with water conservation and also with weather variables, how demand can change. Currently in the water fund right now, we're about a $35 million revenue fund. We have a slight structural deficit right now based on some of the capital projects. But looking into the forecast with current day inflation, what's happening in the future, the projects that we need to finish in the future here too, that would continue to grow. Talk about projects, right? And our simple metric is what we're known as a 300-mile water system with about 26,000 connections. That's kind of when you compare agency to agency or city to city. We have 200 million gallons, 20 to 30 days worth of water in storage for emergencies. The key to a water system, I'll say it over and over again, is all about redundancy, being able to get water to and from in multiple directions. We know we have an aging infrastructure, but I think there's a good news story here too, is we've been putting a lot of investment in our water system and in our wastewater system, but we still have projects to go, and our projects are not easy, right? When you think of like working in an alley, when you think of the submarine, the harbor projects where the pipelines are, buried under the bay, and some of these other ones, they're much more difficult to accomplish. We have a lot of infrastructure. Some of our neighboring cities have infrastructure was primarily built in, let's say, the 70s. We have a lot more that was built, back in the earlier times, but also in the 50s and 60s as well, too. We know escalation. We know how much we've calculated in our, capital projects. We know all the pipes we want to replace, but we always learn too. And so having that flexibility to change the direction based on capital needs, based on neighborhood needs, based on paving needs, that's kind of also one of the benefits of us operating our own, water and wastewater enterprise fund too. So we have a direct priority to correlate what we're doing infrastructure-wise underground with what's also kind of best for the greater community and the other projects that are tying in. I'll give you an example, like the new junior guard building, right? Like that brand new building. But as we're looking at that, we're looking at a pipeline there that's kind of at the end of its life, and we're going to be redoing this parking lot. That's the time to put in that investment to do that. And that's having that flexibility and that vision, I think is a great benefit. And that's what we do when we look at kind of from a holistic standpoint. So reserves. So how much do you have in your savings accounts for different sets of emergencies too? This is really an important part. We talk about it in the general fund, but also in the enterprise funds. And last time in 2019, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what's the right amount for reserves. And we developed, an operational reserve, which also includes emergency buying of water too. It's cash flow, but it's also, for example, if our water wells went down or something like that too, we right away have the additional money to buy the metropolitan water. Capital reserves to be able to fund capital projects or to accelerate projects or to move projects around, and then also the drought reserve stabilization to keep kind of calm while droughts happen, just like we did this last round too. And so our target reserve over the years is somewhere around $18 to $20 million. And this slide kind of shows what we're proposing with our rates, and then also shows too kind of status quo. So if we just don't increase rates moving forward, over time, and you keep your spending on your capital replacements and so on, then you would basically burn all of your reserves. This next slide was added into the presentation, so this is a new slide here. This gives kind of the overall financial picture of the revenues versus expenditures, especially if you break it up in operations versus capital, and then the ending reserve amounts as well. This is all based on the study which recommends this type of rate increase. We already have programmed in the books, already previously approved for 2024, our 50-year rate increase from the last time we did it in 2019. So we're proposing to keep that as is. That's about $4.77. And then over the next 4 years after that, $5.50, $6, $6, and $6. Those are monthly increases, and then those would happen annually as well, too. This is a slide just kind of showing again the breakdown. You have the fixed, you have the meter charge, like in this case, $25, and then a typical usage, which is, that 10 units. Every unit is 100 cubic feet. And so 100 cubic feet is 750 gallons, approximately 748. But anyway, and that gets you the math to that $64. So you can see that every year how we're proposing how that would increase from that 477 to 550 and so on. Now, every water meter has a different rate, and there's different kinds of water meters too. There's recycled water meters, there's fire service meters, and then there's residential and business. There's no distinguishing factor if you're a residence or a business, you get charged the same. It's just about your meter size, how much you could take or potentially would take from that meter size, and then how much you use. And I'm going to now switch gears to wastewater. Here's a chance if you want to ask any questions about water, or I can finish the slides on wastewater and we'll do that. Okay. So switching over to wastewater, also known as sewer. Again, that also has a dual charge to it, where it's a fixed charge and then a usage charge as well too. Now our rate revenue here is about 50-50 fixed versus variable. But our business costs are 100% fixed. Nothing really changes depending on, there's some minor things there, but it's basically 100% no matter what the usage. So we're trying to move into that direction. That's where most agencies are going, to keep your sewer fee pretty much just standard and fixed. And the average homeowner bill is $14 a month. Now, in the wastewater fund, we have a much larger structural deficit. So we are using reserves at this point with our revenues versus expenditures. We're continuing to try to maintain our capital project spending, but we lowered it actually this last year a little bit, knowing that we don't have that much money in reserves. And knowing that this rate study is coming, we would like to come back to that normalized rate of over $1 million a year in capital spending. The wastewater system, again, it's 200 miles of pipes, and a lot more of that is older than our water system. And we videotape them, we clean them, we do all of these things. A couple things that are unique to us compared to other agencies is we own, and what I would say, kind of accept the responsibilities of laterals that are in the public right of way. There's a lot of agencies that don't do that. We do, and we've been doing that a long time too. However, that is a cost. That is a cost function. It would be easier to say, no, we don't have that responsibility, but we do, and we've done that for years. 21 sewer pump stations too. Not an easy thing, and those are expensive to maintain and to rebuild. We just had one awarded at the last city council meeting as well too, for another $800,000 investment. And when that was put on the books back 12 years ago, I think it was like a $300,000 cost. So these things continue to increase and cost money. In the wastewater fund, we have a little different reserve levels there. And what we're proposing and what's been in there basically is a 90 days worth of operations. So that's about $1.2 million, and then also a capital reserve. So we can do a year's worth of capital at any time if we need to accelerate something or if we have an emergency of some sort. That translates to that $2.3 million escalating to $2.8 million. And what we're proposing, you can see, is we're going to keep burning some reserves and digging down and then pull out by the end here. And if we do nothing and we continue to spend capital, you'll see we'll be negative and be in a debt position. And I think it's also worth noting, we talked about at the Finance Committee, is that we don't have any debt in either of these funds too. And that's something that is not always common in the water and wastewater industry. This slide was added to the presentation after the packets were printed out, again, to give kind of the bigger picture of the total revenue, and the operational expenses and capital expenses, and then where we're projecting the ending reserves to be. So one approach could be change the rates one way so you get to your reserve targets in year one. What we're proposing is to basically get to our reserve targets although it being less by the time we get to year 5. So we're trying to gradually slope up to our expenditures and reserve targets. The wastewater, typical monthly bill, again, $14 a month. So that delta comes out to, $2.20, $2.50, $3, $3.50 in years 4 and 5. So you're adding that $2 and $3 increments every year on that monthly basis. And we're also moving the fixed versus variable to start better aligning with our expenditures. Here's a typical bill example, with the 855 and the 510 gets you to 1365. I just called it $14 for simplicity, but the other numbers are more specific in terms of the rate increases every year. And just like water, your size of your meter affects how much sewage you're going to be generating. So you have a fixed charge, which is not so much about capacity. It's based on a different formula, and then how much you use, which is that 50 cents a unit. So I'm nearing the end here, but our recommendation is you kind of take this information back. Please give us any input, and if approved in concept, we would return next month, at the end of next month, and bring to you the actual formal study and all of the calculations in the packet, put that in the agenda packet, and then ask you to approve that and ask you to set the public hearing. And then the schedule would be something like this, where it would be September 26th. We'd come to you with all of the documents, all the information for your approval, and then we'd go out and do our noticing and public outreach for a public hearing on November 14th, with the goal of implementing, January 1st, and then technically it becomes in the rates January 1st, but then by the time bills get out and things, it's February, March, and things like that. So that concludes my presentation, very quick, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. That was amazing. Councilmember Avery.
Always fascinating, this stuff. We're getting pretty close to completion of smart metering. And would you anticipate going forward that would lead to further savings in terms of water usage as people become more aware of their usage and detect leaks sooner and all the rest of it?
Yeah, we're just about complete, Councilmember Avery, with our automation of the water meters. We have about 200 more to go. And what we're learning from that is all of these different leak detection capabilities too, which we're able to head off at the pass. And we have more to go there too, but that will also reduce water usage as well too as we move forward. Yeah.
Right. And then the 200 miles of pipe, is that basically sections that are connections to the main lines?
So in the water system, it's about 300 miles of main lines. In the sewer system, it's about 200 miles of main lines, plus the laterals too.
Okay.
And in the water system too, then you have, plus the meters, plus all of the service connections. So every single line that goes to a house is also in addition to that mileage. So that doesn't include that mileage.
And so we service those lines. If there's a break or something happens,
Yes, that's our responsibility, and we repair those. Anything that's in the public right-of-way up to the meter is our responsibility. We maintain those, repair, replace them. When we build a new project, like for example, we're just finishing up in Irvine Terrace and then Balboa Island too, we typically replace not only the main pipeline, but all those service lines and the meter boxes, kind of giving it a complete infrastructure replacement.
that's a real service to residents and to businesses, isn't it? I mean, to your point, I would imagine majority of cities have sort of gotten out of that side of the business.
I think on the wastewater end, on the water end, most utilities are, owning that service line, but on the wastewater end, there's quite a split of agencies that do it differently.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wagon.
Yes, I'd like to thank staff for the presentation. I had the benefit of touring the Big Canyon Reservoir last week and seeing how expansive our system is here. I mean, a lot of our neighboring cities have their own Mesa Water District, Irvine Ranch Water District, Newport, full service. It's pretty cool to see that we do this ourselves. So we have to extract water from Fountain Valley. We also have to buy water from Met. And then we have to clean the water and then we send it all the way in our pipes to Big Canyon Reservoir, which gives us a 30-day supply. And then it's the largest reservoir that has fresh, drinkable, on-the-spot water in Orange County. So that's pretty great. So, I mean, we do have a lot of expenses, and we got aging infrastructure and, like you said, tight quarters, rainwater, seawater on some of our pipes. It corrodes a lot quicker than probably other cities. So I'm supportive of having an increase with inflation and with everything going on with costs these days. I think it's expected. So I'm supportive to see. One thing, though, that I did have some conversations with Mark and with our city manager about is here's my water bill here that I grabbed. And, Mark, what would you say the increase would be next year and then moving forward if you combined both wastewater and drinking water or just, fresh water?
So next year's increase would be $477 for water and then also $220 for sewer, so about $7.
So $7, you get your bill a month or every 2 months is what we do in Newport. So all your other utilities like your cable bill, your power bill, your phone bill, those come monthly, and then ours come every other month. So a consumer gets double, and then in between the time frame of 60 days, you kind of forget, and then you see this large bill. My bill here for 2 months was $467. Now I'm going to be, on my soapbox here and say that I have a swimming pool. Not everyone has a swimming pool, but we cleaned it after it being dirty water for the last 11 years. We finally drained it and then acid washed it. So I had to fill up my pool, and the bill was only $467. Like that's pretty reasonable for me. But some people budget their lifestyle differently, and a bill of $500 is a lot of money, getting every 2 months. So I just would like maybe staff, and I don't know if Mark, you want to chime in on it now, or if we want to talk about what we can do to perhaps coming to an idea to maybe make this be a monthly bill. Maybe staff has to do some researching on it, but some of our customers might find getting a bill every 2 months pretty difficult to pay, and or at least look at and say, oh God, why am I paying so much? And if it were broken down maybe by the month, it could be, especially if we're going to have increased fees associated to it. So $14, if you're saying it's a $7 increase, it'll be $14, and then each year it maybe be 15, then 16, and as that increases, a customer is going to be more likely to complain and see a higher bill, where it could be if it were monthly. It might be more easier for them to pill to swallow, per se. But I'd like staff and maybe this council to kind of think of the idea of coming back at a later date and looking at getting a bill that might be monthly instead of every 2 months. But I just going back to what I've seen firsthand in our city, it's a fabulous thing to have it be done ourselves. And I think the residents appreciate that. And so I'm supportive of seeing an increase.
Mayor, if I may make a brief
Please,
comment to
thank
that,
you.
and I appreciate the comments from Councilmember Wygand, and certainly having a bill that comes monthly, I think is probably a better customer service in terms of just a regular bill happening. We do have about 25,000 accounts, and right now the bi-monthly billing allows us to bill half each month. So it's from a resource allocation. It's a little more cost effective, but it's definitely, I understand where you're coming from. I also think from a communication and for conservation and all that, having a monthly bill is more helpful for residents and businesses. So it's something I think we'd like to take a look at, being mindful that we want to balance how much more this would cost for us in terms of resources. We'd have to be auditing and checking through all the bills, every month to do that, dealing with customer service. So there's just going to be a bit of more of a resource requirement, but there could be also savings associated, given that we have the automated meter reading going on, so that takes out the manual reading costs. If we do more auditing more regularly, that could be some additional revenue generated, to our baseline through regular auditing. So I'd like to be able to take a look at that, and if we could defray, and it's on balance, it doesn't cost as much, but provides more communication and service for the community members. We'll continue to look at that and perhaps be able to bring that back at a later time when we've been able to analyze it a little further.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate that. Some municipalities, or not municipalities, but water providers, they do it on their property tax bill too, right? And whereas we do it as an actual monthly. Is that, do I have that right? Some other cities perhaps get it in their property tax, whereas we do it every 2 months.
Well,
If
yes
they
and
have-
no, right? Like
yeah.
there's some, so for example, like for wastewater in Costa Mesa through Mesa Consolidated, that's on their property tax bill. Mesa Water District has both. They have a bill every 2 months, but they also have a property tax component also, so you get it on your property tax. So there's some of everything.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's worth looking into.
Councilmember Stitt.
Yeah, I'll just be brief. Kind of a lot of feedback over here. Just kudos to you and your team, Mark, for all this. I know it's a lot of work, and this is great and something we need to continue to look at every 5 years. Jason, being on the Finance Committee, do you just want to mention a few things, like this was unanimously supported by the Finance Committee before it came to council, and just dig into that maybe a little bit?
Yeah, so in July, we took this to the Finance Committee and discussed really the same presentation with the full Finance Committee, and there was full support with the recommended rates that were reflected in today's presentation.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, just a couple of things for me. One, thank you guys so much. I think that sometimes we forget what it means to have a municipality that takes care of its own water and sewer. I think the most stark example of that is every single person's electric bill, and knowing when South Coast Edison is in charge of something, how redundant it is, how often it breaks down. So we're just lacking a lot of wonderful pieces from there. I know our Public Works Director is a huge fan of them. And I think it's something that's amazing that we have. And honestly, at the cost that it is, I haven't looked at my water bill in a while. And as Eric was talking, I actually pulled up a bunch of them throughout. And it is probably the best value we have from water and sewer. I mean, it's unbelievable that we can operate an infrastructure like this, do it at something of these rates. And when we talk about increasing cost in dollars, I think Starbucks has harder conversations than we are right now. So very, very thankful for what you guys are doing. And I will say, from a personal piece, the smart meters are very, very helpful. Not in my house. We don't monitor that. My wife monitors that. She monitors me. But in the restaurants and from the business perspective, it has been extremely helpful. I mean, we found a number of leaky faucets, things we just didn't know, things that kind of went without seeing, that I got pegged on an email for, and trickled down to a management side. So unbelievable and super helpful. So thank you guys for everything you're doing. Did you have something you want to say there, Mark?
I just want to also recognize Stephen Catron and Casey Parks, who are here to my right, to our two utility managers operating the water and wastewater system, the key players that are making things happen every single day and every single night. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate everything you guys do. And if you ever want to take over the electricity in the city, we'd be really happy to, Dave would be happy to give that over to you guys. All right. Let's go to public comments on this.
Mayor Blom and members of the council, my name again is Jim Mosier. One very small point, I think we heard that the wastewater fund had a much bigger deficit than the water fund. And checking the slides, I think they're both $1 million per year, pretty much. I think the point that was being made was that the budget, the capital needs for the wastewater fund is much smaller, so that equal deficit is much more troublesome for the wastewater fund than it is for the water fund. The last slide we showed that the rate studies are going to be available for public review, so I'm curious if that is going to be announced somehow so that we will know when they are available for review. And in looking at that, I will be curious, and maybe the new members who have not seen such things before will be curious about how it handles the separation between the fixed and variable costs, In the wastewater fund, the variable cost for usage, a relatively high rate for that encourages conservation, as was pointed out on the slide. In the wastewater or sewer fund, however, the charge for usage is rather inequitable because people who have very large yards, much of that water is not impacting the sewer system at all. So if they're charged just on the basis of that, I don't know. Mark may have said there's a more complicated formula than that for how it's divided, but I'm not sure. And so you want to be sure people are being charged fairly. I live in one of the odd parts of the city where the water is supplied by the city, but the wastewater goes into the Costa Mesa system. And we have the fixed charge there for that. So it's on the property tax bill. Everybody, all property owners pay the same rate, regardless of what size yard they have to maintain, which is, or actually what size family they have, which is, who knows what is fair. It's a complicated issue, so I will be curious what the rate study says, how it handles that.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments on this item? Wonderful. Let's bring it back up here. Seeing nothing, you need any direction from us at this point? You have a general consensus? Wonderful.
Yeah, we'll plan to move as we had put on the schedule on the slide.
Excellent. Let's move on to public comments on agenda and non-agenda items. Okay, seeing none. I was waiting for you, Jim, but you got it out of the way in the beginning. I like that. All right, Mr. Harp, do you have a closed session announcement?
I do, thank you. The City Council will adjourn to closed session to discuss anticipated litigation in regards to one matter and whether to join the amicus brief in the case of Gloria Johnson versus City of Grants Pass. And that's all set forth on the agenda under items 4A and B.
Thank you. We're recessed until the 5:30 regular meeting. I call the meeting to order for the August 22nd regular City Council meeting. Madam Clerk.
The record will reflect that Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill has an excused absence.
Mr. Harp, is there a closed session report?
Yes, there is. Regarding item 4B, a motion was made by Councilmember Kleiman and seconded by Councilmember Stapleton to have the city join an amicus brief in the case of Gloria Johnson versus the City of Grants Pass, which relates to the constitutionality of Grants Pass camping ordinance. All council members voted in favor of the motion except for Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, who had an excused absence.
Wonderful. Now's the time for the invocation by Pastor David Main of Calvary Chapel of Costa Mesa.
Thank you, Mayor. And Lord, we just ask now your presence and your blessing upon our gathering this evening and the entire council present here and the staff, Lord, that oversees our city. We do lift up, Lord, our police department, the leadership, and all those that serve, our fire department, leadership, and all those that serve and protect our city. The power department, Lord, water and electricity and power, Lord, that kept our city running during that storm. And Lord, we're thankful that we didn't incur any real heavy damages. And Lord, we recognize that we again rely totally upon your graces and your presence each and every day. Lord, the meeting that's before us now, bless in wisdom, guidance, and in direction, Lord, on the decisions and the matters that are before us. And those, Lord, that will impact, Lord, for the benefiting of our city, Newport Beach and Corona del Mar. Lord, bless now, we pray, and we thank you for our gathering tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to this great country. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, notice to the public.
The City Council of Newport Beach welcomes and encourages community participation. Public comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per person to allow everyone to speak. Written comments are encouraged as well. The City Council has a discretion to extend or shorten the time limit on agenda or non-agenda items.
Thank you. Now's the time for council announcements or reports from council members on committee activities and the time to request an A1 item for a future agenda. Councilmember Kleiman.
Thank you, Mayor Blum. I attended the United to End Homeless UCI poll results with Councilmember Grant and also the Newport Beach Historical Society Centennial Lifeguard Celebration. I also want to announce that we are hosting the next Sober Living Task Force meeting here at City Hall in the community room on Friday, September 8th at 2 p.m. Lastly, I want to recognize our Newport Beach chief of our fire chief, Jeff Boyles, for completing the Executive Leaders Program at the Naval Postgraduate School Center for Homeland Defense and Security this month.
Councilmember Stapleton.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congrats, Chief Boyles. That's well earned, I'm sure. I attended the ACCOC Public Policymaker Academy last week. It had a lot to deal with general plan and some homelessness things that we talked about with other agencies and other municipalities in Orange County, so I enjoyed my time there. I also did attend and had the opportunity to present some kind words from the city in recognition of our lifeguards in the 100th year they've been serving and celebrating that with our lifeguard chief, O'Rourke, and a special shout out to Bernice Falstad and his crew over at the Historical Society. That was a terrific event and well deserved, and I would be remiss if I didn't congratulate our new Citizen of the Year, Laird Hayes. I can't think of anyone who's more deserving of that award than somebody who loves the city as much as that we all do. So congratulations to Laird on a well-earned achievement. I do want to take a moment and welcome our newest assistant city manager, Simone Georges, to come up and give an update on Picasso and what it has to deal with. We've gotten a lot of comments in the recent couple days with the Coastal Commission meeting coming up. And I think, Simone, if you want to begin with the letter that we're talking about that council is going to present to Coastal Commission as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember Stapleton. Good evening, Mayor Blum and City Council members. So just a little update on our amendment with the Coastal Commission with regard to fractional ownership. We had the item on the agenda for August 7th. The item got postponed, and we heard that it was postponed because there was a noticing error. From a city standpoint, we give Coastal Commission our interest list of who's interested in this item, and Coastal forgot to mail it out and send it out to those people that are on the list. They've postponed it. We're hoping for a September hearing, but now we've learned that they are only going to the Coastal Commission to ask for a 1-year extension. That's normal for them to do, to ask for these maximum extensions, but it gives us a little bit of pause. Are they going to take a year to hear this item? And I've spoken to them. Their intent is to bring it back in October to actually have a hearing. They want time to focus more attention on their findings to make a bulletproof document and a bulletproof staff report. So they want that extra time. They're running out of the clock. I think they have to make a decision by October 5th. Hence, that's why they're going in September, just to ask for an extension of time. Councilmember Stapleton mentioned that we're going to go ahead and send a letter. We will send a letter from under the mayor's signature, requesting that the Coastal Commission stick to that October schedule and make sure that our item gets heard by the Coastal Commission in October. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you. I appreciate giving that update. Certainly a big focus in District 1. And I'll finish my comments with a very special happy early birthday to Councilwoman Grant.
Wonderful. Councilmember Grant.
Well, I will echo the numerous congratulations that we have for so many of our staff. Assistant City Manager, newest Assistant City Manager Simone Georges, Chief Boyles for his wonderful completion of the Executive Leaders Program. He's already so highly regarded in his field, and that's an important accomplishment and will be a great value to our city. And also to good friend Laird Hayes as the Citizen of the Year. Those are all wonderful accomplishments, and we're lucky to have such great people working with us in the city. I also want to congratulate the Newport Beach Police Department Teen Academy participants. I went to their graduation. They completed a 7-week course. these high school kids work really well with our police department and come to better understand the department's operations. It's an important community outreach. Police also conducted the annual National Night Out at Bonita Canyon Sports Park. That was a wonderful community event. I've been going for years and I highly recommend it. Another opportunity to meet our public safety workers in a community-friendly setting, ask questions, bring concerns, and it's always a great night out. One of the highlights of our summer was the junior guard graduation at the Balboa Pier. We had over 3,000 people attending to recognize the 1,400 plus junior guards that graduated, and can't more highly commend the lifeguard department. Great leadership in conducting that summer program. It's just absolutely a home run for our community. And finally, I attended the Association of California Cities Summer Roundtable at Wild Rivers. That was an experience. And that's when our elected representatives come together. They talk about topics of regional importance like housing, crime, local control, and it's a good opportunity for us to have Newport Beach represented in that context. So, good 5 weeks off. Lots to accomplish.
Thank you. Councilmember Wigan.
I don't have a report.
Councilmember Avery.
I really don't have a report except to, give my congratulations to my longtime friend and neighbor, Laird Hayes, for Citizen of the Year. And he's the real deal, that guy. He's something else.
And real quickly, uncharacteristic of me, but I do want to also congratulate Community Development Director Simone on becoming a new assistant city manager. And I think it's worth saying that our city management team is some of the best I've ever dealt with, and we've dealt with a lot of municipalities all across California. But with Grace, Tara, and Simone working it now, we're pretty unstoppable. So they cover every spectrum, and I'm so thankful for all of our directors and really what we've achieved over there. So thank you guys so much. Also, Chief, well done. I heard you got to pilot a destroyer too. That was amazing. Amazing. Wonderful. And then really briefly, I do want to mention I am going down to Maui on Thursday to tour Lahaina and give all of the sympathy and support we can just from a friendly basis, meet with some of the business owners down there. The Newport Beach Foundation has been very supportive of that as well, offer them a small token in the form of financial aid to however we can help. I know that it's kind of a mess down there right now, but we have similar ideals in our cities and theirs, and so we're just reaching out for whatever support we can offer them. So that should be wonderful. Now on to matters which council members have asked to be placed on the future agenda. This is going to be a non-discussion item. Councilmember Kleinman, Stapleton have asked to consider a policy for nightly closure of all public restrooms in the city, consistent with the policies of surrounding cities in the county. Let's take a quick straw vote on that one.
That's 6-0.
Great. And Councilmember Kleinman has asked council to consider a study of the allowed uses along the Coast Highway commercial corridor and parking needs of Corona Mar Village. Did you have something you wanted to mention briefly on that one, Councilmember?
Not unless anyone needs clarification.
No? I think we're wonderful. Does that work? Let's take a straw vote on that one, please.
That's 6-0 also.
Excellent. Madam Clerk, please read notice regarding public comments on consent.
This is the time in which council members may pull items from the consent calendar for discussion. Those are items 1 through 26. Public comments are also invited on consent calendar items. Speakers must limit comments to 3 minutes. Before speaking, please state your name for the record. If any item is removed from the consent calendar by a council member, members of the public are invited to speak on each item for up to 3 minutes per item. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will all be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. Council members have received detailed staff reports on each of the items recommending an action. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the City Council votes on the motion unless members of the City Council request specific items to be discussed and are removed from the consent calendar for separate action.
Wonderful. Councilmember Kleinman, do you have any items to pull from consent or conflicts to announce?
I do not.
Councilmember Stapleton?
Nothing to pull, but I do have conflicts on item 3 and 11 because of my equity membership in the Pacific Club.
Councilmember Grant.
Nothing.
Councilmember Weigand.
No.
Councilmember Avery.
I'd like to pull item 12 just to get a little more information.
Absolutely. And I'm going to pull item 23. We have a motion, Councilmember Stapleton.
Yeah, I'd like to move the consent calendar except for items 12 and 23, which have been pulled, and with the amendments to item number 1, the minutes, and then my recusal for items 3 and 11.
Excellent. We have a second on that. Seconded by Councilmember Kleiman. Wonderful. Let's go to public comments on consent calendar, items 1 through 26, with the exception of the items. Jim.
Mayor Blum, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. On your consent calendar, at the end of it, you have the city response to 3 grand jury reports. I have no problem with the city's response, but if you read these in the letters signed by the mayor that are going to be sent to the Superior Court, on item number 25, which is the one about school shootings, on the second page of the letter, there was some problem printing it out, so it looks like an eye chart, and it's unintelligible as English as to what we're responding to. So I would hope that somebody will try to clean that up a little bit. It's on page 25-63 of the agenda packet before sending it to the court. Otherwise, they're going to be quite curious what all this eye chart stuff is meaning. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on consent? Seeing none? Okay. Any additional comments from up here? No? Let's go ahead and take a vote.
Prior to reading the vote, I'll read the ordinance title for item 3, ordinance 2023-13, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Newport Beach approving an amendment to the Newport Beach Plan Community Development Plan to revise the minimal affordability housing percentage of the residential overlay. With Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill absent, the motion carries 6-0.
Excellent. Moving on, item number 12. Do you want a staff report, Councilmember Weber?
This stands out just in terms of the cost, and I understand why, but I think it'd be great just to note for the public record the effort that's going to go into this project.
So, Mayor Blum, council members, Jim Houlihan, the Deputy Public Works Director and City Engineer.
Jim,
With
if you could turn your mic on, please. Thank you.
I just need to get closer. With me is Tom Sandifer, Assistant City Engineer and also the project manager on this project. So, real quick, we had put together in our FFP, which is our financing plan that we've had for many years. This item has been in there, and it was set at a number per square foot for years based on ultimately replacing as we put it in and then we'd replace it. So we had a set number for the carpet, let's say, the replacement of that. This project is obviously more complicated. We've got to regrade the site. We've got to put in drainage. We're changing out the lights, so it was about a $400,000 hit on those items. So there's irrigation, landscaping on the perimeter that we get into. So it's more than just obviously the turf change out. So like I said, in the past we'd been carrying a number, but we knew that was just a placeholder until we had the plans ready and we were pricing it out. And the bids came in a little bit lower than our engineer's estimate as well. So that's basically the background of that.
And how large is it in terms of?
Thank you. Yeah, it's 2 acres is what we're going to be actually turfing. Yeah.
So multiple fields.
Yeah, multiple fields. The entire sort of playable area down there will be converted over into turf, and that will allow us, I think it's something like 30% more play time because we won't have the downtime for all the turf maintenance.
And there's a lot of folks using that field.
Yes, this is a very popular field, especially in that area.
Yes.
There aren't a lot of play fields up in the north part of this
the
city.
So there's probably the lifespan of the turf. That's probably.
We propose in our FFP, we propose a 10-year replacement. So
Right.
like Bonita Creek's coming up in a couple years as well.
Right.
So,
And then that'll
but
be-
at that point, it's just the turf.
Yes,
So
right,
it's
exactly.
a
You've done
lot.
all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Councilmember Grant?
So is there generally the idea that over time, we're going to be doing this on all of our fields? Why that field and how many, I guess a better question is like, is there a savings? I realize there's a water savings, there's more usage. I mean, how does that balance out? How do you make that determination? And where is the next field?
So I know that, I think Sean's here, but REC is giving us some guidelines on what they would like to see. As I understand it, this is the last field that we'd be changing over. We've done Grout Howell, we have Bonita, and now we have this field. Do we have another one?
Nope.
No, that's it. So those are the highest used fields. Those are the ones where we program significant amount of use. So I haven't heard of another field yet. It's not in our FFP.
What
so-
about like the Bonita Canyon Sports Park fields in that median? Those are all
along Bonita Canyon.
Ford
Road.
and Bonita, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have not heard, Sean, here he goes. He's the man.
Good evening. Thanks for the question. There was a study that we did, I think it was about 14 years ago, to see which field we wanted to do and why for synthetic turf. And really one of the big drivers is lights. Because field with lights, then we have all that extra use of time during the day. So this is the last lit field that the city owns. So that was our thought about this would be the last field that we'd have in that equation. So that's how we came to those. And those are other factors that go in: parking, restrooms, all those sorts of things. But lights are a big driver.
Any other council comments? Seeing none, we'll go out to the public on this. Any public comments on this item?
Mayor Blum and members of the council, this was among the several consent calendar items I didn't find time to provide any written response comments about. This in the staff report, I actually could not tell if the higher price we were seeing, or even the starting price, included actually the turf, since it says it's for installation, or if it was just the contractor installing the turf. I take it that it does include the cost of the new turf that will be installed. And since you don't actually see the contract or what is being purchased, I wanted to mention the staff report says that the staff received feedback from PB&R at their February 7th meeting, and it's incorporated in the final design. Part of that feedback had to do with concern about whether the turf that was being purchased was made from recycled material to be environmentally friendly, and number two, whether it was a product that itself had an easy way to dispose of and recycle at the end of its life. And since that's not mentioned in the report, I cannot tell if those were incorporated in what is being purchased or not. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? Wonderful. Any other additional council comments? Great, let's go. We have a motion on this one. Moved by Councilmember Avery, seconded by Councilmember Grant. Let's go ahead and vote.
The motion carries 6-0.
Great. The other item I pulled was 23, the Visit Newport Beach fiscal year budget supplemental. Do we have any representatives from Visit Newport Beach, Newport Beach and Company here? That is telling. Okay. All right. So this will be for the public record. Mayor Pro Tem O'Neill, who is not here at the last meeting, had asked for some additional information. Jim Mosier actually submitted some great comments about this as well. And we received a response letter that is part of this document, and I was quite frankly blown away to see it. They flat out denied the city's request, saying that they have no need to give us any information on something like that. We'd asked for salaries, kind of where the dollars were allocated as far as those go, and they said this is about privacy. As it was noted by Mr. Mosier, and I agree wholeheartedly, they are a tax-exempt organization, and they are required to report salaries anyway with the IRS. So it is very much public knowledge. I would be less upset about something like this if they had other clients, but we are truly their only client. I'm actually very surprised that there's not one representative from any of these organizations here today to discuss this matter or have any conversation about it. And it is very, very disconcerting considering they are a marketing agency that strictly markets Newport Beach. And so I will say that I'm a little blown away about this entire response in a letter. I would love to respond to them in their letter and ask for something else or meeting us halfway at one point. I don't need people's names, but I would like to see how some of these funds are allocated. So this is a receive and file item, but I would like to keep moving down this path and see if we can get a little more information out there if that's going to work for us. I don't see any other comments up here. I will go out to public comment on this item. Public comment on it? All right. I said what you wanted to say, Jim? Okay, good. That's the first time for that. All right. Wonderful. I'll bring it back up here, and this is just a receive and file. Do we need anything on this? No? Great. Okay, let's move along. All right, now let's go on to public comments on non-agenda items. None? Wow. Oh, please, come on up. This is a great...
Good evening. My name is Casey Courtwright. This may or may not relate to what I saw on the agenda item of streetlight foundation inspection and replacements, but a couple of weeks ago, I nearly died because of a vehicle blew through a red light turning onto University Drive when it was my green arrow to turn left into the Bay Point apartment complex. This is not the first time that I witnessed vehicles nearly hit my car as they blow red lights at this particular intersection of La Vida and University Drive, nor do I assume it will be the last. That is until a red light camera is put in place. Additionally, on Saturday, my Uber driver blew through the red light arrow to take me home to my apartment, and I was in full shock. I was like, this is so dangerous. I was very scared. I live in the Bonita apartment homes and see hundreds of men, women, and children at the Bonita Creek Park across the street. I, along with my neighbors, also cross the street on a daily basis to walk our dogs. It's very heavily pedestrian intersection, and I fear not only a car-on-car collision, but a fatal car and pedestrian accident is imminent too. My neighbor below actually moved out of our apartment complex because her son was hit from a car on La Vida. It's a very busy intersection because it's near a substantial amount of apartments, the 73 on and off ramps, and the UC Irvine. I can't imagine traffic dying down in the near future, so I believe that this reckless and fatal behavior needs to be stopped immediately. The only way to deter this form of illegal behavior is to obviously enforce the law with steep consequences, but I believe that there should be a red light camera with a flash and a steep ticket price to deter the consensus that currently surrounds this intersection, which is I can run the light because there's no one there to stop me. I've lived in many cities, yet none of those cities had anywhere near the amount of drivers who run red lights as I've seen in Newport Beach, California. I love it here. This is where I want to call home for the rest of my life, but the danger that I witness at this particular intersection is truly frightening. I want to protect myself, my boyfriend, my dogs, and my neighbors from the daily, nay hourly threat of drivers who run this red light. I do want to commend the Newport Beach Police Force. They've been targeting excessive driving, and I do believe that they're successful in that matter, but I think it's time to add running red lights to their priorities. So thank you for taking the time to hear my plea. I hope you give this careful consideration and act swiftly to put in place a red light camera to stop drivers from running red lights in every direction of La Vida and University Drive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments on non-agenda items? Seeing none, let's move on to current business. Item 27 is amendment number 3 to community development block grant and professional services agreement with Mind OC, which is Be Well OC Mobile Crisis Response Team. Let's do it. Tara?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. We have a brief presentation for you this evening. I'm joined by Lauren Whitlinger, and we will go over amendment number 3, our request for amendment number 3 to the Mind OC agreement. Mind OC is the nonprofit organization that developed the Be Well mobile crisis transportation team. We've had that concept here in Newport Beach since February of 2022. And since that time, 7 days a week, 12 hours per day, we have had a mobile crisis team driving throughout our city, responding to dispatch calls for service, but also proactively visiting locations throughout Newport Beach. I just want to quickly walk through how we got to amendment number 3. Our original agreement was formed in September of 2021. It took about 4 or 5 months to bring the program online. Back then, we were still having some supply chain issues, and we had difficulty getting the van. And then there was some hiring and some training that had to happen. So the initial cost of the agreement was just over $1 million, $1,093,000. And we also asked for, it was a 1-year pilot program, but in the agreement, we asked for 2 additional 1-year options. Because the program started slightly late, we found that we had more money still in the contract, and we were able to just extend the agreement, the term of the agreement. So that was amendment number 1. We extended the term out to June 30th of this year. And then earlier this year, around that time that we were extending this, the council formed the Homeless Ad Hoc. And the Homeless Ad Hoc was tasked with reviewing all of our homeless outreach services, including our agreements. And this agreement was one of them. To allow the ad hoc time to do that, before we ran out of time on the agreement, we amended the agreement one more time to extend the term to the end of this month and add about $120,000 to the agreement. So tonight, staff is asking that we amend this agreement one more time, amendment number 3, to extend the term out to the end of the end of this fiscal year to June 30th, 2024. We would increase the contract amount by about $956,000. And we also have been working very closely with Be Well. They've been in conversations with staff and with our some of the members of the former Homeless Ad Hoc Committee to see how we can better fine-tune our existing scope. So in that process, we are further focusing now the scope of services on our unhoused community, and we've been talking to Be Well about how to get even more assistance for our homeless outreach team. So we are replacing one full-time care manager position that's currently in our agreement with 2 part-time positions. One will be a staffer that helps our team with housing navigation, and the other is a case manager that will help our staff as we bring someone from initial enrollment all the way through housing. So we feel that those 2 enhancements are really important to help us in our outreach efforts. We also are asking Be Well to further expand their metrics and data reporting. And all of this, again, is to better fine-tune our homeless outreach efforts to help our unhoused community and really get more effective street exits here in Newport Beach. Tonight, we have Catherine Hamill here with us. She is in charge of mobile for Be Well OC, should the council have any questions. And Lauren is here as well because she actually helped with the initial agreement, and she is overseeing the CDBG portion of this agreement. And just to kind of walk through how we got to the total ask for you, the total contract amount. Again, the initial agreement was $1,093,000. We amended once for time. We came back again. We added, with the second amendment, we added $120,000 to the agreement. And tonight we're asking for a third amendment to add $956,775. That's how we come to the total contracted amount with Mind OC of about $2,170,000. And of that amount, about a third of it, I do want to note, is the CDBG funds. So about a third of this contract is being paid through CDBG. We have about $184,000 remaining in CDBG funds that can carry over into this portion of the agreement should council approve it this evening. And with that, we have Lauren here and Catherine Hamill, and I'm here as well for any questions.
Wonderful. Councilmember Kleiman.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Tara. I really want to emphasize the thank you. I know that you put so much time and energy into diligently getting this amendment done and before us tonight, so thank you. And I'm sure Councilmember Grant will have some things to add, but we did work closely on refining this amendment, specifically the scope of work. And we feel that it addresses a number of the gaps that we identified when we were on the Homeless Ad Hoc Committee in order to support the goal of street exits as outlined in the new policy that the council adopted a few months ago, including several things: the need to emphasize proactive mental health and addiction support, the need to collect better data so we're not reliant on the county's point-in-time count to tell us what's going on in our own city, and that way we can be more responsive to changing needs. Also to connect individuals to Cal Optimus Cal AIM program, and as Tara mentioned, housing navigation to ensure access to long-term services in the county's continuum of care, as well as be prepared for the state's care court implementation. I do want to mention that the amendment has, it includes a generic daily schedule, but I just want to be on record to say that my understanding is that staff will continue to work on, again, refining that schedule so that we have varied, staggered shifts that allow us to cover some of the hours of day that we're not currently covering, later evening hours and early morning. Of course, that is something that BWell will have to figure out for their staffing on their end. Those are all of my comments, and thank you again, Tara, for all of your hard work on this.
Thank you. Councilmember Stapleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Tara, thank you to you and your team and to the ad hoc committee for all your work on this. This certainly goes in line with, I think, is getting our police officers off the streets being social workers and putting it into professionals like BWell and, you know, that have the time and the resources to help with mental illness or addiction, whatever the case may be. I'm all in favor of that. Can you go back to the cost? I just want to make sure I'm on the right page. So what are we looking at as far as the total contract's $2.1 million for the foreseeable future for the next year? It's around $956,000. Okay, so it's not, we went around $1 million. We're going to continue to go at about $1 million a year. It's not an additional $2 million for a year. It's the total contract.
We just, for this coming year, it'll be 956.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's about what it's been for the last, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
We were able to keep it around there by taking that one position out when we added the 2 part-time positions into the program.
And did BWell's dealing with the RV situation as well? Do they deal with that at all?
I believe, I don't know if Catherine's here. They roam
She's
throughout the
there.
city visiting, some of our hot spots and talking to individuals as dispatched. I don't know, are you also working with some of our folks that are living in the RVs? Yes, we are. Yes.
Yes, okay, great, terrific. Thank you.
Councilmember Grant.
So I also want to highly compliment staff, our city manager, our assistant city manager, and everyone else who worked so hard on getting this BWell contract to where it is. It's a huge step forward. When we entered into this originally, we didn't have a template. And we tried a lot of things, and a lot of things worked, and some things needed a little massaging. And the staff was very amenable to working together with council to make sure that we really closed the gaps. It's a absolute huge step forward, and I'm very excited to see us implement these new provisions that are in the agreement, especially as Councilmember Kleiman mentioned, the program enhancements like the housing navigation, increased case management support, the better metrics reporting, especially the critical enrollment in the Cal Optima Cal AIM program. These are all things that are going to result in what we sorely need, which is freeing up our beds so that we can offer those opportunities to people who are on our streets and continue the flow and not have a standstill. And that is the critical piece that we need. And I'm very, very excited to work forward, going forward with the city and, with the council to improve our other partnerships that relate to homelessness, so that we can have a 360-degree approach to this. It's again, I can't say it enough. It's a huge step forward, and I'm really, really proud of our city and how we handled it. So thank you so much.
Councilmember Weigand.
Yes, Councilmember Kleiman brought up a key point that I was going to bring up related to scope of services. Under C, it discusses the specialist 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Friday through Sunday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I appreciate those comments because I do think it's something that we should be adjusting and looking at and not just staying set to a schedule. Substance abuse, to me, it's the mornings, you're probably passed out, and in the evening is when you're using. So I would love to see that more towards later in the day. But I understand, there's maybe an opportunity to talk to somebody when they are coming down versus when there's a science probably to it. So I just want you to know that I would like to see some flexibility in those and not a consistent. I think that's helpful to get an understanding of where that is. And then Councilmember Stapleton brought up the RVs. In a lot of parks, I've noticed there are cars that are there routinely. So I don't know how that process is done, if you wait till they come out or if you knock on there, whatever you do. But it is an unseen to some people because they just see a car and then they kind of go by it. But if you look in the car, there are people in there. And Councilmember Stapleton is especially affected because of where he lives, but I do notice it in our parks and some of our other streets. So I do think that's a key element to not to miss. But I appreciate all the hard work from staff and our homeless ad hoc committee. I think coming to that really got us where we are today with this. And staff's working with Be Well. I appreciate you guys being out there. I think it's some good synergy, so appreciative of every effort being done.
Councilmember Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. From my perspective, now my 7th year on council, the homeless thing, when I first got it, was absolutely frightening, trying to get a grip on this. And I remember these chambers being full of people who were not happy, and residents that were fearful, and all sorts of crazy ideas coming out. And I think most of the council at the time was just sort of like, wow. And we really worked to try and figure it out. But this work of the ad hoc committee over this past year, and probably the year prior, some of the work that was done, we're just so much more granular in our understanding of this and distilling it down to really where can the differences be made. And that's what it seems to me that's going on now. But just an incredible amount of time and energy over the past 10 years on this issue. And I just think it's just so improved at this point, with obviously help from the county. And but it's just what it takes. It takes help from a lot of different directions. But I think anybody that lives in Newport Beach, if you're a thoughtful person, you feel much better when you see and understand that your town is doing the work to help mitigate this painful experience for folks that are out there on the streets. And that's what we're really committed to, clearly, to do this. And there's a lot of resources being expended. We're not done, and we know we're not done. We're just going to keep pushing, and then that's what we've got to do. Because a great city can do this, should do this, has to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's jump out to public comments on this item.
Mayor Blom, members of the council, my name is Jim Mosier. I have no doubt that this is a very valuable program, and I'm always pleased to see the Be Well van traveling around our city. However, I would note, as Councilmember Stapleton said, one of the original hopes when we contracted with them was this would relieve some of these time taken by the police and fire departments. And I notice on page 2 of the staff report, it says that when we first contracted with them, prior to that, I'm a little surprised by this, the city's police and fire department were responding to approximately 4,500 calls for service each year for issues of the sort that Be Well handles. And if I divide it correctly, that's like 12 calls per day handled then by the police and fire department. So I'm just curious, and perhaps you would be curious, if this program has impacted that and the number of calls handled by the police and fire is now substantially smaller than it was without this program. In other words, did it do what we thought it was going to do in that respect? It's great that it's helping the people. I don't know if it's doing this because it's not covered in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back up here real quick. And thanks to that, Jim. And I think that was one of the important parts that Councilmember Climate and Councilmember Grant brought to the table, asking for more reporting from that side. Anecdotally, I will say, talking to our police and fire chiefs, it has been very helpful. Not necessarily, I would say, on maybe the calls they always respond to, but the time taken at each call has helped limit some of that. So, we're trying to figure out the best way to get the reporting done on something like this, to get that question answered a little bit more clearly for you. But it has been a big concern of ours as well. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a great piece. And I do also just want to commend everyone, the entire executive team. I know Aaron, Grace, and Tara have spent countless hours on this topic. It was probably the most active ad hoc committee in the history of Newport Beach. We had only like 6 or 7 meetings per week about it. But I think that shows the dedication that everyone has for finding a top to bottom approach to this. No one's looking at this as, we hear it a lot. We get a lot of emails saying, if you just do this or just do that. Well, we're trying to do everything. And I think that's really an important piece of this, is that if we can do as much as we can, it gets us to the closest point where we can be, and really sets an example for all of California, and a great way to address this issue and this problem in the most humane and sympathetic way we can, and both attacking the root and some of the circumstances involved with it. So I really want to commend my colleagues for getting there, and staff immensely for getting us there. Thank you, guys. All right, we have a motion. Moved by Councilmember Grant, seconded by Councilmember Kleiman. Perfect. Let's vote.
A motion carries 6-0.
Wonderful. Item 28 is resolution number 2023-53, adopting salary ranges for the city manager and city attorney, and adjusting base salaries for the city manager and city attorney. The city manager and city attorney will be recusing themselves from this item based on potential impact on their finances. Hello. I think you're required to give us a report, aren't you?
I am required.
It's
You
great
just
to
stole
see
my
you.
thunder.
You know what? I was here not to steal your thunder. Take it away, Barbara.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. My name is Barbara Salvini. I'm the Human Resources Director. Because the item before you proposes changes to the compensation for the city manager and the city attorney, a brief presentation is required. The staff report tonight proposes a 5% base salary adjustment to the city manager and the city attorney's salaries. In order to accommodate that base salary adjustment, a resolution has been prepared that will go ahead and adjust those salary ranges so that the 5% base salary increases will be included in that range that we publish for CalPERS purposes.
Oh, perfect. Councilmember comments? Seeing none, let's jump out to public comments on this one.
Mayor Blum and members of the council, I believe for 4 of the council members, this is the first time that you have publicly presented a recommendation for increasing the salaries of the 2 of the 3 employees who work directly for you. So you may have not heard my comment in past years, which is other agencies I'm aware of, in the past, some of those changes have been based on performance, and you do an annual performance review. Those other agencies have found it proper and appropriate and more transparent to publicly post the performance goals they have for those employees, so the public can be aware of whether they're actually doing what you are asking and expecting them to do. And I've never quite understood why in Newport Beach the performance goals that you're setting and then evaluating at the end of a year are not known to the public. I think it would be a good idea for that to happen. And then, as the substance of this, one thing I noticed is this does not seem to be a performance-based increase so much as an inflation one. 5% increase, I suspect, is about inflation rather than performance. And the staff report says the salaries are going up 5%. It does not say what they're going up to. And then it shows some ranges, and it does not tell the public where in those ranges they are. So you have to actually sift through the staff report and actually look at the actual contract. And then I truly do not understand the ranges. The new salary for the city attorney would be $292,525, which is exactly the limit, the top of the range, which to me it would seem instantly you're going to have to increase the range the next time the salary goes up, or I don't know if they increase automatically. And then, although that's exactly the top of the wide range for the city manager, the contract says $325,733, but the top of the range is $200 above that. And so I don't know why one is exactly the salary and one is $200 above it. I don't know if that's a typo or not. I assume the ranges change automatically. Don't know. And then the budget amounts are bigger than the salary amounts, and I don't know why that is either. So there's much about this I don't understand. But then there's many other things I don't understand. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item? Okay, we'll bring it back up here, and Barbara can speak to a couple of them. But I think to just give you a quick breakdown, this is an Amendment B to an already existing contract, so that's why I think some of the salary ranges look a little bit different. If you go back to, Jim, the attachment C, 28-11 and 28-14, it'll give you a clearer breakdown of the actual difference in the contract cost coming through this. So about $18,000 for one a year and about $16,000 a year for another. This was added on to a larger contract. This contract wasn't reopened. And yes, it was performance-based. When we had gone ahead and moved forward with some other salary increases for directors and key in management, we did not do it with the appointed. So we kind of tied this to a little bit of performance goals. So I hope that answers some questions. If the small dollar discrepancy, Barbara, if you want to just jump in and give me a clarification on that one.
Sure. The city attorney was already at the top of the range when the request was made to adjust his salary now another 5%. So the salary range needed to go up 5% accordingly. The city manager, on the other hand, was not at the top of her range. We did not need to increase the range the full 5%. It ended up being around 1.5%. And so that's where you see the $200 or so of window room between what her salary will be if the staff report is approved versus what the top of the salary range will be.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. All right, we'll bring it back up here. Any other comments from the dais? Excellent. Seeing none, I will go ahead and move this item. Do we have a second? Thank you. Seconded by Councilmember Stapleton. Let's go ahead and vote.
The motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you please read the announcement for motions for reconsideration?
A motion to reconsider the vote on any action taken by the City Council at either this meeting or the previous meeting may be made only by one of the council members who voted with the prevailing side.
Do we have any motions for reconsideration? Seeing none. Tonight we're adjourning in memory of Mike Giddings, and Councilmember Wigan's going to go ahead and read that for us.
Yes, tonight we adjourn in the memory of Mike Giddings, who passed away June 27th at the age of 89 from complications from a stroke he suffered in May. Mike was a legendary football coach who led Newport Harbor High School to 3 league champions in the 1980s after an accomplished coaching career at the collegiate and professional levels. Mike spent his early years in Newport Beach before his family moved to Pasadena. He excelled in sports as a youth and earned a football and baseball scholarship to Cal Berkeley. After college graduation, he joined the United States Marine Corps and played for the Marine football team. Mike found his true passion in coaching and quickly moved from coaching at the high school level to the community college and then university level at USC and the University of Utah. In the late 1960s, he made his move to the NFL, where he worked as a San Francisco 49ers coaching staff and later served as assistant coach for the Denver Broncos. In 1977, he founded a player evaluation and analytics company, ProScout, which was highly successful and is now run by his son, Mike Jr. Mike had a hard time staying away from coaching and in 1985 came back to be the head coach of the Newport Harbor High School football team. He brought Newport Harbor back to respectability by winning 3 league championships in a row. Mike is survived by his wife, Sybil, his 3 children, 7 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. There will be a celebration of life on November 25th from noon to 4 p.m. at the American Legion, Newport Harbor Post 291.
Thank you. We are adjourned.